What would you say was the most dramatic change in Nintendo's identity over the last 20 years? Would you say it's the integration of handheld and console development teams forming the Switch? Would you say it was the revolution of the Wii? Or would you say it was the Squid Kids in Splatoon? And honestly, it could be any of these. Nintendo has been creating and redefining expectations since their inception. But I'd argue the largest change in Nintendo's identity is tied to the quiet fading of one of their most recognizable creations, the Mii. This is the story of the rise and fall and the strangely unfair hand the Miis have been given. The conception of the Mii wasn't something Nintendo developed overnight. It was something Shigeru Miyamoto had been chasing for decades. Stretching 20 years before the Wii's release, way back on the Famicom Disk System. The concept was simple, but radical. Allow players to represent themselves using predefined features. This idea stemmed with the use of Mario Paint. Predetermined selections were available for hair, faces, eyes, much like in the final version. The idea was there, but the technology and purpose weren't. Nintendo didn't know how to include the character creators into their games in a meaningful and profitable way. And because of this, the project sat dormant on the table for nearly 2 decades. After about 20 years, what would become the Miis popped up again. The Miis were revived, all thanks to a development team working on something for the DS. With new additions for options and positioning and sizes for facial features, it allowed for more specific Mii characters. When Iwata got wind of this development, the project was shown to Miyamoto, and the team moved to work with Nintendo EAD, developing the infamous Mii channel. You know the one. The floating heads, the blank stares, and the iconic melody that generations will forever hear when they think of Wii. This is really where the journey of the Miis began. The platform that expanded Nintendo back into a household name. With the Wii, Miis were connected at the forefront. They were the second most important channel according to Nintendo, judging by its placement right next to the disc channel. Nintendo wanted you to click it. Miis weren't just a small feature, they were core to the Wii's experience. They represented the player in a new way, not just a hero or a mascot, but you yourself. They were ingrained with time on the console, showing your log of games being played that day. The Miis blew up on the internet, where simple tools were used to their max potential. Creativity from players flowed in. Seeing characters like Peter Griffin, a sandwich, Mario, it really felt like a little imagination, and you could find any character that you wanted online. Nintendo had accidentally created one of the most accessible creative tools they'd ever shipped. This explosion was so huge, Nintendo followed up the Mii channel with the Check Me Out channel. It was a logical next step. It felt revolutionary in itself. A channel designed to highlight that creativity, where competitions were held for Miis who fit a description. Challenges, browsing, parades, it again just placed the Miis back into the forefront, making the Miis feel like these wacky characters were more than just a save slot icon. They were like Nintendo's other characters, unique and fun as ever. Not just that, but you remember that profitability I mentioned before? Well, Miis finally found their footing. They had their own channels, but they also popped up in games on the Wii. Mario Kart, the entire Wii series, and the most iconic Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort. Man, the Miis were the stars of the show here. They were the characters you played. You were the character. Whether you were good at sports or terrible, it didn't matter. The Wii made everyone feel capable. It really became an explosion of self-injection into so many of these games. Miis became the ultimate tool for that self-insertion. They made games feel approachable, personal, and unintimidating. And for a moment, Miis were just as important and recognizable as Nintendo's traditional characters. Then, the next evolution of Miis took place with the next generation, the 3DS and the Wii U. Continuing the incorporation of Miis, Nintendo increased their importance. On the 3DS and the Wii U, Miis were social objects. They were your friends. They were other users online who shared the same game. They were real people you walked past. They weren't just for stats, they were collecting experiences. On the 3DS, one of the best additions of pre-installed applications ever used your Miis, Street Pass Mii Plaza. I remember playing Street Pass, Puzzle Swap, and Find Mii regularly, waiting for the moment my 3DS would light up green or blue to see who had finally come to visit. It felt like bumping into a friend randomly while out and about. Having VIP Miis come visit me was another absolute treat. People like Iwata, Sakurai, and Reggie, and so on. They would come visit almost yearly, and it felt so personal. Sure, I know everybody got them too, but having them line up in the group with all the Miis that I passed while out and about, it just felt so special. Heck, and that's just meeting the Miis. Then you could go to Puzzle Swap with different pieces being specific to physical locations across the globe. These VIP Miis had them all, meaning I could finally complete the puzzle I needed just one more pink piece for. And going through Find Mii with a group of strangers and friends alike made the journey all that more enjoyable. I'd often hoped the Miis who joined me would be powerful enough to defeat the boss so we could continue. The Miis felt so alive. Nintendo pushed even further with Tamagotchi Life, transforming Miis into exaggerated reflections of real people. Relationships, drama, humor. It was weird, uncomfortable, and it was deeply Nintendo. Miitopia followed, letting players cast an entire RPG with Miis, turning them into storytelling tools. Conversely, on the Wii U, Miis became the face of the entire platform. From booting the console up, to the social platform, to the bundled games. They were everywhere. The Wara Wara Plaza, the home menu of the Wii U, was a wonderful delight hosted by the Miis. They greeted you as you loaded the console up with a smile and a little wave, letting you know they are here and ready for your gaming journey. Then, when connected to the internet, tons of other Miis would come down running to their respected games, showing off what the most popular 10 games were at that time. It would always catch my attention, and seeing the amount of Miis below a title made me feel interested to see, hey, maybe Deus Ex Machina is a good game. I see tons of people talking about it. It was inviting for discussion and new recommendations of what to play. And then there was Miiverse. This could have its whole own video talking about it. It was huge for the Miis. Miiverse really was such a different social media platform. Nintendo went all in on integrating the community to be connected. Your Mii would fill in just as your avatar on Facebook or, well, my Mii here on YouTube. On Miiverse, you had communities for each and every game or application that came to the consoles. A place where you could say almost anything and draw almost about anything. I distinctly remember the enjoyment I got from going to Miiverse just to see what screenshots people shared from the games I had. I remember looking through tons and tons of comments, talking about what they liked and disliked from games, and scrolling through so much wonderful art that was created there. Really, just give an artist a pen and they could do amazing things. I mean, this sense of community went way beyond just the Miis. And you can even still feel the effects of the community in games today like Splatoon 3. Everywhere somebody writes or draws something that they share in the plaza, well, it all came from here, in Miiverse, the home of the Mii communities. See, up to this point, Nintendo went out of their way to establish that the Miis were critical to the enjoyment of the console and the features. They were directly ingrained with the enjoyment of Nintendo. But there was a shift that came. The handheld and console development departments joined at Nintendo and brought a new revolution. The Switch. In 2017, the Nintendo Switch launched, and it was such a success by every definition of the word, but it came with a shift. Nintendo focused on what they did best, developing consoles. It was all about software, all killer, no filler. For the Wii and Wii U, it was bloated with features, options, settings, and Nintendo needed to trim the fat. The Wii U struggled, so the Switch had to perform and be clearly about the games, and came with the philosophical shift back to this mentality. Games were the focus, and the Miis faded away into obscurity. Now, they aren't completely gone. They're still there. They're just hidden. Each console before had a true Mii channel where you could create your Miis, create other Miis, share Miis, have Miis, so on. Even the 3DS did. But with the Switch, there isn't one. There isn't a Mii to greet you when you start to play. There aren't Miis holding their Switch on your friends list to show the life of those players. They're just sitting behind some settings. Popping into your profile, you get a slew of icons you can choose from Nintendo's catalog. And way at the bottom is the option for a Mii. You get most of the same options we had way back in 2006 for the Miis. Some new ones were added too, but outside of that, there isn't any sign of the Miis surviving into this new generation. Well, that was until a few specific games would come and revive the Miis. You could still play them in games like Mario Kart, even Smash Bros. Games like Miitopia made its way to the Switch. And on the horizon, Miis are making their comeback in Tamagotchi life. But the whimsical little characters of Mii and You have been mostly relegated to small one-offs or simple cameos. Outside of the Switch and Switch 2, Miis have begun popping up in different and new, unexpected locations. Miis have been the way to identify yourself with your Nintendo account. When setting up special events that require sign-ups on Nintendo's website, often the tickets have your Mii shown proudly. For the museum in Japan, when it opened in 2025, your Mii again was listed on your ticket. And in Nintendo store locations, each employee on their card has their name, and bam, once again, the Miis. So when I ask about the most dramatic change in Nintendo's identity over the last 20 years, it wasn't just hardware, it wasn't franchises, it was the shift away from designing consoles that represented the player. The Miis weren't just characters, they were a statement. They said Nintendo wasn't just making games for you, they were making games about you. The console knew who you were. It greeted you, it reflected you, it made you feel present even before you launched a game. Modern Nintendo is sharper, faster, and more efficient than ever. The Switch 2 is an incredible platform, but just like the Switch, it's a platform first. They don't ask who you are, they ask what you want to play. And the difference matters, because when the Miis faded away, Nintendo didn't just lose an avatar system, they lost a layer of identity, a layer of personality that existed outside of the games themselves. Something uniquely Nintendo that couldn't be replicated elsewhere. So maybe Miis didn't disappear because they were outdated. Maybe they disappeared because Nintendo's philosophy has changed. And whether that makes Nintendo stronger or just safer, it might just be the biggest identity shift they've ever made.
Thanks for watching. Till next time.